Welcome to a new edition of the N Harmon Show. This week's episode going to be a little bit shorter than you're used to. Normally, we like to cover the big three sports, NFL, NBA, MLB, and whatnot. But this week, ran into a few technical difficulties and corrupt files and whatnot. So we just have a nice long MLB segment for you that's going to cover what just went down with the All-Star festivities, home run derby, All-Star game, and some little headlines that have been going around, some moves have been made, and just some general MLB headlines. So enjoy the show, and we'll be back next week with more basketball talk, football talk, and we'll get everything rolling again. Enjoy. We'll start off with the Home Run Derby, which was the first big event to go down. So the participants we had in the Home Run Derby were Carlos Gonzalez, Todd Frazier, Giancarlo Stanton, Mark Trumbo, Corey Seager, Robinson Cano, Adam Duvall, and the hometown boy Will Myers.
I've got a fun story about Giancarlo Stanton for you. You want me to drop that right now? So the Marlins, they set up a promotion for the Home Run Derby. Yeah. Where for every home run that Giancarlo Stanton during that Home Run Derby, they date that percentage point off their tickets for a specific game. I don't think they realized he was going to hit 61 home runs. Wow. Yeah, he hit 61 home runs. Yeah. So after that comes out, they come out with the promotion, and they say, due to MLB rules, we can only do a 25% max on a ticket discounts for the game. And they said, we'll try and get that 61% in for one game. But they're not going to do it for any good game, and they're definitely not going to do it. So they said they want to have it happen in the next couple of weeks. But what's also coming up in the next couple of weeks is Ichiro going for his 3,000th hit. So I would love if somehow those lined up together where they accidentally had to give away 61% tickets off to Ichiro's 3,000th hit instead of getting all that money. That would be gold, and so Marlins-like, so Miami Marlins-like. But yeah, that's really all I have for you on the Home Run Derby. Yeah, he hit 61 home runs, and it was also reported that he hit 3 miles worth of home runs in the game. He put on an absolute show. There was two things that were certain in that Home Run Derby. One, you're always going to get, but one, now that we're in the age of Giancarlo Stanton. One is Giancarlo Stanton hitting bombs, and two is your man Chris Berman. Back, way back! Oh, giving them home run calls. I missed out on that. That's one of the things I do miss. Even though back. Everyone seems to hate on him nowadays, but it's a good callback. I remember loving him when I was a little kid, so still a Berman fan.
Yeah, so it was interesting to watch because, man, Corey Seager put on a show right out of the gate, but I really don't like how they're now doing just head-to-head matchups instead of taking the top four.
Top four, yeah.
So Corey Seager got one-upped by Mark Trumbo because he happened to face Trumbo in the first round, but for a rookie at 22 years old, Corey was absolutely clubbing it. But he got beat by Mark Trumbo, who's the home run leader.
Yeah, I never liked that. I never liked that. I like the top four as well. I think the dunk competition moved to that for a little while as well, and I was just like, because all you're doing is eliminating. You're taking it's basically what happened in the NBA playoffs where you have Spurs and I don't know, who did they face? The Thunder facing off against each other, having to eliminate each other in the first round. It's unfair to them. You don't get to see the best matchups. You get to see whatever's left at the end due to the matchups.
Right.
And really in an all-star game, or in a home run derby, it's not like you're getting seeding or anything. They're just placing you randomly in a matchup. So it is just very, very arbitrary. Were there any fielder collisions? Because there's about 800 fielders.
Oh, there was one that was really great that my brother and I caught in real time. Mm-hmm. And then they were GIFing it later and memeing it and everything. There was this guy. And I'd say ballpark him around 15, 16 years old. Mm-hmm. And then there's this girl, maybe 11 or 10.
Oh, okay.
He absolutely trucked her in the outfield. It was just, massacred her.
Was he going for it in the process of going for a ball?
They were both going for it, but he was going a lot faster, and they were coming towards each other. He just absolutely mauled this poor girl, and I felt so bad. But wow, yeah, that so that happens.
Yeah, that's always something you need to watch out for when they have about 1,500 fielders in the field running around. Something's going to go wrong.
Yeah. So, yeah, Giancarlo Stanton absolutely dominated it, though. It came down to him and the defending champ, Todd Frazier, who won it last year in his hometown of Cincy. This year he was representing the White Sox, and Stanton put on a show, and Frazier finished it off and had a chance to win it, but it was too much. Stanton has way too much raw power overall, and he deservingly won it.
Yeah, it's good because, just like a month and a half ago, people were asking. I know the Home Run Derby isn't very related to on-field play whatsoever, but to see Giancarlo Stanton at least be on the high point of winning the Home Run Derby after he was on one of his worst lows on that slump he was in like just less than 2 months ago. It's good to see him rebound from that. You hope that momentum will lead into in-play contributions, continued in-play contributions, because he's been pretty good the past 3 weeks or so.
Yeah.
And is Todd Frazier, was he talking this past All-Star break or just this last couple of days about the pitcher's Home Run Derby and how he doesn't want to see like Madison Bumgarner in the Home Run Derby?
I'm not sure if he said anything like that. He might have, but he seems like an overall nice guy in general.
Yeah.
He put on a great show for his hometown last year. Came up just short again. You can't fault a guy for losing to Giancarlo Stanton in anything, really.
I just discriminate on people who hate on Madison Bumgarner. So that's just a character flaw of me.
I think he still is underrated, for sure.
Yeah.
But so now we move on to most people's favorite national announcer, the one and only Joe Buck in the All-Star Game.
Meanwhile, we're at a baseball park, and if we could explain baseball to you in 20 seconds, then we would be geniuses.
That is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire life. Straight from the mouth of Joe
Buck.
Buck.
Was that the opening to the All-Star Game? When did they play that?
No.
Where was the context?
I'm not sure if that was from this year's All-Star Game or before, but it was at one of them, and I absolutely could not believe my ears when I heard that. How do you come up with something so dumb to say?
To be honest, that sounds like something that a producer said, oh, we need to explain baseball to our common fans, and Joe Buck going, that is the stupidest thing you've ever asked me to do, and just came out with that sentence. Like, because that makes no sense. And I give Joe Buck a little more credit to say something over that makes no sense. But I know a lot of people don't give Joe Buck.
I'm a creative genius, and there's no other way to word it.
Hey, Joe Buck is a creative genius. His home run calls, his game calls of just game and nothing else. Just no emotion whatsoever. Actually, I like him a lot better. I have listened to a couple interviews with him. He's pretty funny in these interviews. I just don't think it translates very well than when he's broadcasting an MLB game, and it creates a lot of hate for him. But
yeah. So the All-Star Game was fun in itself too. Yeah, there wasn't any big, muscular Giancarlo Stanton. Hercules. That was given a big show of home runs and long balls and whatnot. But there was plenty of star power in the All-Star Game. The starting lineups, whether you like them or not, I'd say there was only maybe one or two or three guys that maybe didn't belong. For the most part, I think the fans actually did a pretty good job this year. So for the National League, we'll start off. Buster Posey was behind the dish. Woo. Yes, Barry pride right there. And then an entire Chicago Cubs starting infield with Anthony Rizzo, Ben Zobrist, Chris Bryant, and Addison Russell. The only guy I'd say probably doesn't quite fit there because of the emergence of Corey Seager and Aledmus Diaz and Brandon Crawford, who even we'll get to in a bit. I don't think Addison Russell really deserved to be there at all. But, Cubs fans, they were backing their players this year. They're excited that they're in this race and having a good season, so they voted him in. I mean,
it's really the less egregious of all-star voting snafus that we've seen in the past years. I mean,
yeah, not quite Omar and Fonte.
Exactly. Like, I'm perfectly willing to accept as a Giants fan and seeing Brandon Crawford getting snubbed, but knowing that the Cubs have been so good, just so good, and that's sure. Like Addison Russell has been a big part of that as well, so I can't blame Cubs fans for having their moment in the sun.
Yeah. And then to round out the rest of the starting lineup, you had Bryce Harper, Carlos Gonzalez, and Marcelo Ozuna in the outfield, and Will Myers at the DH, the hometown boy. And Johnny Cueto was on the bump for the National League to start, and that was your entire two Giants in that starting lineup for your National League squad, and that was the entire. So there were any snubs there from the National League for you? Mine, I would say, is probably, I already mentioned Addison Russell. So, and then obviously, Ozuna and Gonzalez weren't meant to start the game. There were a couple of guys that just weren't available. I think Yoenis Cespedes was definitely one of the guys that should have been in there, but he was out due to injury. So I don't really fault, those they just filled in, and that's fine. But instead of Russell, I would have liked to see Seager start and Crawford make the squad. But, can't control that stuff.
Yeah, if that's also the only other thing I look at. Every other player so far has just been, like you said, other than the injuries, every other player has earned his spot, I really feel like, for the National League team at least. So,
You could have also made an argument that Daniel Murphy might have been able to start at second base because, he's leading the majors in batting average is a good...
But then that's where the fan play really comes in, and it's If we were in New York, or maybe if the Mets were doing a little bit better and Mets fans got behind their players, because that's happened before. They used to really get behind David Wright, right? Remember, he used to be.
It's Nats fans, it's Nationals who are voting in Daniel Murphy. He's on the Nationals.
Oh yeah. Sorry. He's on the Nationals. Yeah. Sorry, I'm still thinking of two or 3 years ago. But I guess that my Mets story doesn't apply at all anymore.
But you know what? It's funny you mentioned the Mets. Daniel Murphy's actually been killing the Mets this year. He's got some insane batting average against them and a ton of home runs. He's absolutely tearing it up against his former team.
Yeah, I love that. I love the get it back.
Revenge.
Yeah, the revenge factor. It's always a little storyline, and when it actually gets executed, it's fun to watch.
So we'll move over to the AL side of things and their starting lineup and any snubs we found over there. Behind the dish, I think we could all agree that Salvador Perez has emerged as one of the top catchers in all of baseball. All-around great guy, too, and a good role model for that club and just a good presence to have for baseball in general. He's joined by teammate Eric Hosmer, who starts at first base, so a couple of Royals there to start you off. Then Jose Altuve, truly a marvel for today's MLB at all 5'6" of him. He's listed. He may even be shorter than that. But what power and what I don't know what other words you can use to describe that guy. He's just a force.
He's fully figured out how to use that low center of gravity to just crush the ball. This is like Muggsy Bogues going out there and being like a power dunker. It doesn't make any sense, but he's mastered it.
Yeah, he's even more vital to his sport than any other short guy I can ever even think of, though. As far as guys who are undersized, we're considering how undersized he is compared to everybody else. He truly has changed the game and really been a great influence for shorter people around the world who are trying to play in the sport, and he's kind of given them a glimmer of hope and say, hey, this can be done. You can do it. Granted, it's still very rare, but he's showing that it's possible. Definitely. So that's great. And then at third base, we had a newcomer, much to my dismay. I think somebody else should have been in there, but Manny Machado still is having a great season for the Baltimore Orioles. Can't really fault the pick there. I would have went with someone else.
I think I know who you're talking about.
And then at shortstop begins our string of Red Sox, 4 in total that were elected to the starting lineup. We had Xander Bogaerts, who's having an absolutely phenomenal season for the Red Sox. Great contact and good use of all fields, and still so young. And then you had Mookie Betts and Jackie Bradley in the outfield too. And as well as David Ortiz, the ageless wonder at DH, and he's just been absolutely having one of the best farewell seasons I've ever really recalled, honestly. Yeah. And then, of course, you've got one of the best players in all of baseball, and Mike Trout making his annual appearance, which should continue for quite some time. And then at starting pitcher, you had Chris Sale, who has one of the funkiest deliveries you will see, and I don't understand how people hit him, honestly. It's so weird.
Well, usually they don't.
Pitch. Yeah.
So.
The lefty sidearm, little herky jerk. And then he throws 95 miles an hour and then has one of the biggest, it just completely embarrasses you sliders that there is in all of baseball.
I mean, he's good at hiding it. It's quick at coming out, and then he's got the biting, breaking ball right behind it. I mean, what more when you're developing a pitcher, and like you really just are thinking of what 3 things they could use to dominate. Like you go, if you're thinking of just the most dominant pitcher, you go straight to that. Just let me get those 3 things, and I can kill if I'm good enough. So he's proven it out there every day. This lineup, though, I mean, you see any snubs? There's 1 or 2 guys that I would like to see in.
No real snubs as far as just because I think. But my big thing is I just want to see everybody who at least earns an all-star nod, like whether it's starting in the lineup or on the bench, just get in that's deserving. And I didn't really have too many issues with anything on the AL side of things, to be honest.
I would have liked. Did Ian Desmond get a spot on the bench at all?
He did.
Okay,
yeah.
then,
so he was on the bench.
Okay, I wanted to see him get in. I could have seen him in a starting lineup, but of course the betting thing. And then Trumbo, I'm assuming Trumbo obviously also got a spot on the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, those are the 2 guys that I would have thought maybe could have broken into the starting lineup, but of course, those Boston fans did their thing, and like the Chicago fans got their guys in. So it is what it is.
Yeah. One guy I'll say that actually had a pretty good season, which I think it was a result of a deeper position this year that he couldn't get in, is George Springer on the Houston Astros. Actually had a really good season so far, and he's kind of broken out for the Astros and shown his potential. Well, he might not have even reached his full ceiling yet, but he's been having a great season. So he's my one guy I'd say might have deserved and got snubbed off. My one guy, obviously, that I think got snubbed from the starting lineup, who's still on the squad, though, is my boy JD, Josh Donaldson, who's one of the top...
Best player in baseball right now, arguably.
Yeah, he definitely is. I mean, considering the fact that Mike Trout's playing on such a crappy team, and the Angels are so just out of today's game, and just they don't get it. They have one of the most depleted farm systems in all of baseball. They're still hanging on to Jared Weaver's throwing 50-mile-an-hour fastballs, and I feel so bad for him. I feel so bad that he has to play on such a crappy franchise, honestly. Yeah. And they think that they're still going to compete, and they're paying Albert Pujols till he dies, and they're still paying that Josh Hamilton contract through next year.
They've made big offers on hitters throughout the past 15 years, and it seems to always just blow up in their face.
Mm-hmm.
Never work out for them, which, I mean, it worked in, I'm trying to think, in their run in 2002, they had a bullpen, right? But were they really known for their starting pitching?
Well, that was when they had John Lackey and...
okay, so young John Lackey.
I don't know if they had Bartolo Colon back then, too. They might have had him. And Kevin Appier.
I know they had K-Rod.
Yeah, they had K-Rod. Yeah. He was very good. Yeah. So they had some decent pitching on that team. Yeah. That was also when they had Troy Gloss and David Eckstein and Tim Salmon.
Yeah. Like, I remember their bullpen being oh man, what was that guy's name from their bullpen?
Troy Percival.
Yes, Troy Percival. Yes, that guy. He scared me. He scared me.
Yeah, he was very good too.
Yeah.
Very good closer.
Yeah, their bullpen was scary.
Yeah, so that was your AL All-Star starting lineup, and so then it was down to the game itself, and both teams clashed, and honestly, it was very run-of-the-mill. End of the game started off, they started off the game with a bang. In the first inning, Chris Bryant comes up to the plate against Chris Sale. Like I just said, how do you even hit Chris Sale? But Chris Bryant sat on fastball first pitch and got his fastball and absolutely drilled it. Only like Chris Bryant can, and he's really becoming one of the best hitters in all of baseball, definitely in the National League, and he's, I think, the front runner for position players to get the MVP honors this year.
He's developed so quickly too. His name broke into the scene maybe two and a half years ago, a year and a half ago, and now he's
as
right.
Like one of those top prospect guys, one of the guys that you're on the lookout for.
And even guys like Bryce Harper, and I feel like Mike Trout maybe not Mike Trout, but Bryce Harper really took a little bit of time to develop into that player that he is now. I feel like that happened in less than half the time for Chris Bryant. He's just at the top, straight to the top. That Brock Lesnar push.
Yeah. Shout out to Brock and his win in UFC 200.
Yeah. You watch that?
Nah, I can't say I watched too much of it, no. Yeah. But I heard about his triumph, and good for the ex-WWE man.
Yeah. He's still in it. He's doing both, yeah. I tried to find an illegal stream. I couldn't find anything.
But, so Chris Bryant, absolute bomb that he hits in the first inning. So right away you're thinking, maybe this is going to turn into a slugfest or something. I actually read about some articles that are saying that, hey, maybe this year might actually, with the home runs kind of making a resurgence, maybe we'll see some of that in the All-Star game. We'll see a bit of a fireworks show. But there were 3 home runs in total, but the score was still pretty low. The end of the game was 4-2. The AL ended up beating the National League, so they will take home field advantage in this year's World Series. The other 2 home runs that were hit were from the American League side. 2 Kansas City Royals were, I don't think one guy was I think the Kansas City Royals were the MVP of that All-Star game, really, just because all the production came from their 2 guys, the catcher and first baseman, Salvi Perez and Eric Hosmer, who both took your boy Johnny Cueto deep.
They're pushing for that home field advantage. It was like it reminded me of that. And I think this actually might have been in Kansas City, the All-Star game in Kansas City, where you had that unit of Giants players who ended up just putting like 4 or 5 runs on the board and pushing their team towards the victory. This was just like a repeat of that going the other way, the Royals making that push going for the victory. So, I mean, they see home field advantage. I mean, actually, maybe how have they been doing recently? They have had so many injuries this year that it's hard to get a gauge on the Kansas City Royals. But you know that obviously they were pushing. They want it. They want that home field advantage.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Do you like...
I don't think that the Kansas City Royals, to be honest, though, are going to...
Yeah.
The big problem with them this year, and I saw the stats that were posted in the recent trend for their team starting ERA and their team starters' average innings pitched per game. They've been on the decline for the last 2 years, and this year is their worst out of the 3. The starting pitching ERA has gone up, and the average innings pitched for their starters has gone down and down.
You think that's
it's a big problem. You need
they played a lot of playoff ball. They played a lot of playoff ball. Do you think maybe these innings have just started to ended up rolling up on them? Their arms are getting a little tired.
Their bullpen is still very dominant, and I'll take their bullpen over most. But when their top starter right now is Edison Volquez, I guess, because Yordano Ventura is a total head case. You can't count on him. He's got the potential to be a frontline arm, but they've been saying that for a long time now, and he's still way too inconsistent. And you've got guys like Danny Duffy behind him, and
a bunch of 3s and 4s.
A bunch of 3 and 4 starters at best, and I just don't think that even because these guys, they're not even playing up to their potential right now. Chris Young's been absolutely getting shelled this year. He leads the league in giving up home runs by a long shot, and they're struggling, and they are pretty depleted as far as guys they can give up to go snag a top arm. And there's not even that many top arms on the market to begin with. Mm-hmm. They could really benefit from getting like a Rich Hill or somebody like that, or somebody from the trade market. But yeah, they're going to need
Way to position your guy there.
Yeah. Yeah, but
like Rich Hill, he's a good,
like I said,
good prospect.
I don't think they have the firepower to even pull off a deal for him. Yeah. I mean, we helped them out last year by giving them Zobrist, and we took some guys from them. And then they also traded for Johnny Cueto as well. And after those 2 trades, I mean, you ran out of a lot of prospects back then, and then this year it's looking even worse on that front. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they handle things. But as far as the All-Star Game's concerned, that's far down the road. Was there anything that stood out to you in the All-Star Game as far as it was pretty run of the mill? I mean, 4-2 final, pretty pedestrian score, nothing too crazy.
Nothing really. I mean, I was disappointed that Cueto was the one who gave up the runs.
Giants fans, if you're going to be disappointed later that you don't have home field, the one thing you could look to, Brandon Belt and Buster Posey went a combined 0 for 2 in the game with a walk, and then Johnny Cueto pretty much gave up the game. So
0 for 2.
I gotta say, I just gotta throw it out there. Well, because Belt only had the 1 at bat,
yeah.
And Posey had 2 at bats. He grounded out to the pitcher and then walked.
Yeah. All right, well, you know what? The Giants taketh, the Giants giveth away. All right, so I'll take that.
But hey, they might not need home field. I mean, granted, back in 2010, They didn't need it at all. But I will say that they're that, 6 out of the 7 last World Series champs have had home field advantage. They were that one team that didn't have it in the last 7 years.
Well, thank God for that. I mean, what do you think about that home field being decided in the All-Star game?
See, a lot of people really don't like that, but here is my big defense of that. Without that stipulation, what would the All-Star game be?
Nothing.
It would be the Pro Bowl. And who would watch it? And who would care to play in it? It would absolutely ruin the All-Star game, I think. That the reason why the MLB All-Star game gets the ratings it gets, and it's not like it doesn't get absolutely crazy ratings, but it does pretty well, and then Home Run Derby and everything. The reason why the All-Star festivities do so well is because there's meaning behind it. If you turned it into the Pro Bowl, like the stupid Pro Bowl, like now they're doing flag football and all that crap, I mean, now all of a sudden it's nothing.
Yeah, it's the necessary move they've had to make.
Even the NBA All-Star game, I mean, they go around and dunk and just launch threes and stuff. Like it's kind of cool to see at first, but it just gets so stale and boring because they're not trying.
The All-Star game altogether across all 4 sports, the importance of the All-Star game. I remember just 10 years ago, it used to be such a bigger thing. Like whenever it came around, I mean, even the hockey All-Star game was a national thing 10 years ago, and people would get a little bit up for that. Nowadays, it's just like, oh, they played. No one cared. Because the games don't matter. And I think the fans figured it out that it's really just another game on TV to make some money.
I would say if it was like the old days. Okay, so in the old days, a lot of the guys 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago that were playing in the All-Star games and the sports, they just played hard no matter what. They went to the All-Star game and they just played hard anyway, and they just kept on playing.
And it wasn't a brotherhood.
And and there wasn't any incentive back then, just like in football and basketball and stuff. There wasn't anything tied to the winner, but they still played hard. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, the players have just lost that will to play as hard without the stipulation, like in baseball. And it's the injury concerns and the managers wanting them to take it easy and all that stuff evolving into modern day. And it's really just about being concerned about injury. That's what it comes down to, I think.
Yeah.
But like in the old days, if the guys just went in there and played hard but even though there was no incentive or anything to play hard, but they just did it anyway, then I'd say, okay, then you remove the home field advantage thing and that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think you need it there just to keep them playing hard. Otherwise, it's gonna turn into a wiffle ball game.
It's almost as if the death of pride has been the death of the All-Star game. Guys just don't feel proud about playing in that game anymore, but on its own, they need the incentive or something to make it a little bit more. So the game's kind of died in the past 10 years, which is a little bit of a tragedy, but just, a little bit of the evolution of mankind as well. So it is what it is.
Yeah, so that pretty much wrapped up All-Star Weekend. Or the beginning of the week, so to speak.
They called it All-Star Weekend, too, and I was like, that's not a weekend. You don't know what the weekend is, MLB. This is a Monday and a Tuesday. Chill out. It made me irrationally angry.
Yeah. So, that was pretty much it for that. And so we'll move on to some moves that happened recently. The Red Sox have been really busy right now. They actually just acquired 3 pieces in 3 separate deals. You could say they're not that snazzy, not that eye-popping, but I think they're pretty
needs.
They're needs, and they're solid pieces just to plug in, and they're all nice veteran presences. Mm-hmm. So they acquired Brad Ziegler from the Arizona Diamondbacks, and then they also acquired Drew Pomeranz from the former A from the Padres, and he's absolutely had a breakout season. And he's been pitching really well. It did, For the Padres, I think they did pretty well with that trade. They got a pretty nice prospect, a highly ranked prospect, but he's really young, only 18 years old from the Red Sox, and he's still in A-ball right now, so we'll see if he amounts to anything later on. And then you had Aaron Hill from the Milwaukee Brewers.
Aaron.
Aaron's been one of the more dependable kind of utility guys that you could throw around like second base, third base, maybe corner outfield, finishes it has that
he gets the job done.
Yeah, veteran mentality. I think he's like a guy that fits like that Giants mold, to be honest. Like he's just he has a job to do and he goes and gets it done, and he just knows his role.
Their staff was their weakness. I mean, they have such a strong lineup right now that they really needed to go out there and just fix. They got something for the bullpen, they got something for the starting rotation, and now they've got just a backup player to fill in behind their strong lineup whenever a little extra depth. I mean, these are the right moves to make for a playoff push, for a World Series push, and I think they made some really, really good moves here.
Yeah.
To set themselves up.
They're needed moves, and I think they're going to make one more move possibly to just really solidify that team, because they're really going to try to push their chips in and go for it. Dombrowski is really aggressive as a GM, so he's going to do everything he can to get it going.
Call it the AFC East, but the AL East is quite competitive this year, so fun to watch.
Yeah. So all those moves happened. Now more towards the not-so-great news. Matt Harvey of the Mets, once touted as one of the top pitchers in all of baseball. Still plenty potential there and still quite young. He's had a rough season to this point, and now right after it seemed like he might have been improving a little bit, he came down with some injuries, and now after being diagnosed with thoracic outlet syndrome in his arm, he's going to be shut down for the year, it looks like. After already having Tommy John surgery, too, it's a lot for him to handle right now, and you hope that a guy can just bounce back from this and be ready for spring training next year. Yeah,
the worrisome issue is that this is an injury that has derailed careers completely. The surgery to repair it isn't as safe as Tommy John's surgery really is. Reliable as Tommy John's surgery has become in the past 5 years, 10 years or so. So you don't want to see this derail his career, because he was such a great pitcher for a limited amount of time. You'd like to see him get back to that high point that he was at, but this could be it. Sadly, you see this happen once starting pitchers start to have those arm injuries. It's just a future indicator for more and more arm injuries, so it's worrisome.
But he has overcome one already, and there are some guys who it's rare, but some guys overcome these kind of significant injuries and bounce back, so to speak, to have a pretty decently successul career.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
So, it's possible that they could get something out of him still, but you'll have to wait and see at spring training and see how he responds to everything. He might not be ready by then, but you slowly work him back next year.
Yeah.
And then the final move that just occurred, Shelby Miller. Oh, wow, the Shelby Miller case.
So bad.
Yeah.
Thank you, Arizona. You guys made a great trade. Just a great trade.
Yeah, Arizona. Tony La Russa, Dave Stewart.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
That's all I can really use to explain that situation.
Where's Ron Washington?
He's playing third base coach for the A's right now.
Whenever I see him on those A's commercials, I'm just like, man, I love that guy. I love that guy.
So, it's been a complete and utter disaster for that Shelby Miller fiasco and trade that went down. So the big guys that were sent over in that trade, Atlanta absolutely ransacked the Diamondbacks organization. They took the number 1 overall 2015 pick in Dansby Swanson, who looks like an absolute stud at shortstop. The first-round pick in 2014 for the Diamondbacks, Aaron Blair, and then also a really promising young, speedy contact outfielder in Ender Inciarte, who is he's a pretty high-ceiling player and can be a nice table setter atop the lineup. So all 3 of those guys for one guy in Shelby Miller.
And you're getting back a 2-9 record with a 7 ERA.
7 ERA, yeah. So he started off the season absolutely just horrendous, and then he goes to the DL, and he came back, and he stayed horrendous. He thought that maybe after the DL stint he comes back, and he's found his rhythm and he's discovering his potential, but no, it's not the case, and he was sent down. And then he actually, when asked about it, said he was surprised it didn't happen sooner.
Yeah, that's
keeping it 100.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just not been fun for that that companionship between the Diamondbacks and Shelby Miller this year. Hopefully he goes down and works things out. I like to see guys find their potential, and I want to see everybody perform to the top of their ability. So hopefully he can, rediscover what worked out so well for him in Atlanta and then turn things around.
Hit through nines is up, home runs through 9 are up, walks through 9 are up, strikeouts through 9 are
the
down.
Rent is too damn high.
It's just across the board failure. Colossal failure.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Diamondbacks, it's so many high expectations heading into the season.
They made some moves to really compete this year.
Yeah. So, last year they were really starting to trend upward, and they had Paul Goldschmidt and A.J. Pollock and all those guys, and they were starting to trend up, and they were playing good baseball. And they were just like, you know what, if Patrick Corbin, and then we bring in Zach Greinke and Shelby Miller, this team actually has some potential right here. Yasmani Tomas and Wellington Castillo. This is a solid lineup that we have and a solid team. But then, this year happens, and they just
oh no, we suck again.
That's pretty much the thoughts of every single Diamondbacks fan right now. They were just like, oh, we had such high expectations for the season. Well, not like World Series or anything, but hey, maybe we could steal the West or steal a wild card spot. But, Pollock goes down way earlier in the year, possibly for the entire year. And then Greinke, after he finally rediscovers himself, then he hits the DL, and then Miller gets sent down. It's like, what else could go wrong right now?
Well, they are playing in a year that is an even year for the San Francisco Giants. So really, it just might be in that division, they're getting some surrounding cast-off magic that the Giants gives you roll your eyes at me and tell me to shut up with your face.
It's entirely possible. Maybe they just saw it was 2016. They're just like, you know what?
Just pack it in for the year, guys.
2017 it is.
That's what I'm going to choose to believe there.
We're okay right now, but we're not quite there yet. One more year would work out.
Yeah.
So the last big MLB topic that I want to talk to is really interesting. I talked to you about before the show. So Darryl Strawberry, former great for the Mets, he, great hitter, great outfielder, great player all around. But he was recently interviewed. I don't know how this came about or what provoked him to talk about this, but he was quoted as saying that he, during actual baseball games that were going on, would have sexual intercourse with females from the audience of the game in the team clubhouse.
I love this quote from him. It kind of worked out that way. You point a woman out and tell the kid to go get her.
That is definitely keeping it 100 right now.
Oh, man.
He just he saw something he liked, and
he then went on to admit that his career probably would have been much shorter and more disappointing if social media existed during that time.
Yeah. That is for sure. Yes, I would say.
Oh man, this what if him and Joe Namath had a social media account back then? Oh man, sports would have been great. Sports would have been great.
The slogan of Darryl Strawberry.
You can do it.
Yeah, it reminds me of. The only other story that reminds me of is the player who took LSD during or not during a game, but he took LSD. The Pittsburgh Pirates player who threw a no-hitter on LSD.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's an amazing video where he's explaining, and he's like, "Yeah, I took LSD and I woke up the next day, but it turns out I woke up the next day after that, and I was on the mound, so I had to get out there and pitch."
Yeah.
He said that at one point he was running to first base and he caught he was fielding first base for the first baseman, and he caught the ball, landed on first base, and yelled out, "I scored a touchdown!" That's how out of it he was that game. So, I mean, those stories are the best. Like, drugs, sex, rock and roll on the baseball field. That's where it belongs.
Yes, indeed.
Great way to end our baseball segment. We need to end our baseball segment with a story like that every week. Darryl Strawberry talking again. What's he got for us this time?
Hope you enjoyed that nice little segment. And again, we'll be back next week with some NBA free agency recap, NFL offseason storylines, and again, more baseball as the season progresses. If you like the show, give us a like on Facebook. We'd always appreciate the fan interaction. Ask us any questions you'd like. You can hit us up on Twitter as well. Eric is at the moment at EH24 the Mamba on Twitter, and I'm at Dalton Wicks. Subscribe to us on iTunes or YouTube. Yes, we are on both platforms. Just search Dub and Harmon Show, and go ahead and subscribe, like, and share with your friends. Until next time, as my partner Eric would normally say, have a good day, night, whatever the hell you're having, and you stay classy.